Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the SOSpgh concert series. I'm here with Rob Diener. He's the owner of V6. You are a producer, an engineer. What else do you do up here with V6?
Well, I'm a songwriter, composer, first producer, engineer, yeah. And so up here is the, kind of the heart of where I do everything that I do, which includes a lot of composition for television, film, advertising, and post, which is everything else, the sound design and the voiceover and recording and all that. And then it's also, where I produce and write for either myself and or other artists. Yeah.
What other artists are you working with in the Pittsburgh area?
Right now I'm working on a record for a band called SOSpgh. They're, a metal band here in town. Been around for a lot of years.
They're on the SOS project. A fantastic job on it as well. In the last year we've gone through this pandemic. Has it affected your studio work?
Well, tremendously. I tell you what, I'll back up just a little bit, because this studio was built during the pandemic, right? So my studios were downtown for 18 years. And, I was talking with, Bob McCutcheon, the owner of the Vault. Before COVID even hit, we decided to do this, that I would move out of downtown and come over here and join Bob and you, Jimmy and Dave and everybody else here. And then COVID happened, the first shutdown last spring, and that put construction on came to a grinding halt. We didn't resume until, we could back in June, I guess it was. So things got delayed a little bit. So you can say, yeah, I worked out of my house for 6 months effectively or more. It brought the SOSpgh project to a grinding halt, of course, because we could no longer. Didn't have the studios downtown. I didn't have this set up here, and plus we couldn't even be together. So yeah, it changed dramatically. That and the advertising world came to a grinding halt. At first, it was very busy because everyone had to get a message out. All the businesses had to say, hey, either we're open or here's how we're doing things, or or in the healthcare industry talking about it. And then once that was kind of done, then shut down, and it dramatically changed things. And it also changed the way we work, because the way everybody is doing virtual meetings now, the sessions are happening that way. Voice talent, already was oftentimes all over the world, but now they are definitely going to be working out of their homes or in other remote locations. And our clients are no longer in sessions. They're joining us via Zoom connections.
And you're set up for that here.
So
right?
Here, yeah, I may have, multiple locations, this being the hub enabling that kind of communication. So, I may have 4, 5, 6, 8 different parties all interacting to produce something where 4 or 5 of them might have all been here before. They're not now. So.
Yeah. Does it feel different not having them in the studio with you?
Well, I don't like people. So I get no.
You get along with yourself though, right?
Yeah, I don't even like me very much. If I could phone this in, I would. No. So yeah, of course. Because the way that I approach session work is, this is fun. It's not like pouring maybe pouring concrete's a bad example. It might be fun for some people, but not for me. This is fun, and so basically, I kind of view session work as like little visits, and we got some work done too. And so yeah, that definitely has affected that.
It's funny you say that, because there's some people that I know that are the opposite. They can't wait to get out of the studio when they go in to record. They like to play live shows better. And I'm like you. I like to be in the studio. I like to create and work like that.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, other than not being able to see other musicians or the people that you're working with on a project, what has been the biggest thing that you miss?
Well, the studio has been my home. I mean, I toured and stuff when I was much younger and played live, but I haven't done that in a long time, because I prefer creating and remembering what I created and being able to play that back. I enjoy that. The live aspect, like you just talked about, has not been really part of my vocabulary for a while. So what I do is here. What I don't get to do anymore is go see new or young bands and get inspired by their work, or find somebody that I'm interested in and that I might want to help develop or work with in the studio. So all of that is certainly gone. I mean, how do I find how do I find people that would come in and become part of this or something? So that's all gone for now. Yeah.
What got you into being a producer and a writer? You were a musician first, right?
Yeah, I'm one of those. Yeah, I started when I was, couldn't barely walk on the piano, and I've always been a musician and a songwriter and played in bands. And as I started to write songs and wanted to record them, in my late teens, I fell in with some studios that would leave me alone in there, and I got bitten by that. I became an engineer, but of course, as time went on, I started working with other people, and I went to New York and spent a lot of years working records in New York, and I got exposed to a lot of the greats of the industry there.
And say you had to pick one or the other.
Well, I'm a musician first.
Yeah.
Period. I'm an engineer only when I have to be. I mean, obviously for my own things I am, but if I can work with Jimmy or Dave or people like, I'd much rather be the songwriter, the composer, the arranger, the producer than the engineer. So even when I produce, I come from a songwriter's approach. So I'm going to work from the arrangements, and I'm going to work from the composition, and take it, and speak in musical terms rather than engineering terms. So, first and foremost, I'm a musician.
That's great. What are your favorite bands from Pittsburgh that have created the most impact? Not just right now, from 70s bands, 80s, maybe some doo-wop back in the 50s. I mean, whatever. What do you think is the most influential?
The Skyliners, of course, going back to that, certainly, Pittsburgh bands. Well, you've got to talk about certainly the big influences around here. Grishecki and Norman and, the Silencers and, all of those guys. And Donnie Iris, certainly, Pete Hewlett, guys that are in my sphere. All of those guys have been a big part in developing what has been the scene here.
So in Pittsburgh,
yeah,
one thing that you would change to help the music community that isn't happening right now, is there anything that you would change that would help all of us? Well, not just one band or anything, but would help the whole entire music community.
Yeah, there's a I think that some of that, what I'm going to say, has started to happen. And when I was playing in bands in Pittsburgh, in the long time ago, I'm not going to say the years, but so
don't date yourself.
One of the things is that because there's no recording industry in Pittsburgh, there's no record labels, that doesn't happen here. If you're going to go to the next place, you're going to leave town, because the labels are in New York and Nashville and LA and Miami and those kinds of things. Some of that changes now with things being less centralized, but for the most part, that's where it is. If you're gonna go on to being a pro, you're probably going to get out of town, at least for some amount of your career, and therefore the community here is very fragmented. Everybody kind of has their turf and don't invade my turf, and we're kind of the band itself is kind of isolated within themselves. Members change over time, and there's some sense of community, but not a great sense of community. My time in New York City taught me something very different, and about how much of a community and supportive community the musicians are in other places. Where Pittsburgh, it tends to be a little more fragmented. And so, but what's happening here around the Vault, with SOS, things like that, where you're starting to see more of a sense of community in musicians, and I think that is where the direction that we need to go to rise us all up, right?
It's a great answer. I totally agree with that. I think we all need to start helping each other out. And I think we need to start doing shows with different genres of music rather than just like the metal guys play their shows or that. Different varieties of music, and that kind of would bring everybody kind of together.
Yeah, and you get turned on to different things, and you find, fans that might not necessarily see you become a fan or, that kind of thing. And, musicians might start also, hey, you're talking backstage to somebody who plays in a genre that completely not yours, but hey, let's get together and do some writing. Let's play together. Hey, come play with our band. Sit in a thing, and you find that you grow. Isn't that cool? And opportunities then start to present themselves to you that otherwise wouldn't have. Hi, I'm Rob Diener, producer-composer at V6 Music at the Vault. You are watching the SOSpgh concert series.